Hi, everybody. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do any content last weekend because I was busy drafting motions for my speeding ticket. And I told someone, I posted a comment on my community tab that I was going to use this ticket to fight for the right to die. Someone said that this was fake news, that I wasn't actually going to do it. Well, I actually have done it. At least I'm getting it on the record, and then I can fight for it later when it goes to appeal. So I just filed a plea in abatement. Excuse me, y'all. Um, Let me go ahead and show y'all. I'm just going to read it, and then y'all can comment as I go through. This isn't very long. I filed like 5 different motions, but this is just one of them. So, comes now defendant appearing sure jurors, respectfully requesting that the court abate all proceedings until it makes a determination of the state's capacity to sue defendant. In support thereof, defendant states as follow upon information and belief. Right, this is relating to the speeding ticket. I didn't really get into the background of the speeding ticket because it's not relevant. A plea in abatement is it is basically relating to facts that are outside of the state's complaint. So I don't need to address the speeding ticket. The bottom line is that, well, as I get through this, my argument is that I don't own my life. Therefore, I should not be held liable for this speeding ticket. A party who wishes to contest an opponent's lack of capacity to sue must do so in a verified plea in abatement. A challenge to a plaintiff's legal capacity to sue is properly raised by a verified plea in abatement and not by a motion to dismiss. A plea in abatement is a plea setting forth some obstacle to the further prosecution of the cause until it is removed, and if it is sustained, the proper action is to abate the cause until the impediment is removed. So, what I'm saying is that before the state can even move forward with their prosecution, the court first needs to make a determination as to the proper owner of my life. Because what I'm arguing is that the state owns my life. Therefore, again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just go through it. And I told y'all the definition of slavery versus citing Plessy versus Ferguson. Slavery under the 13th Amendment is defined as the absence of a legal right to the disposal of his own person, property, and services. And the reason why I cited Samuel versus Clayton, because citing this case cited Plessy versus Ferguson, even though Plessy versus Ferguson has been overturned, the definition of slavery is still good law. So, anyway, under cut of law, the state has deprived defendant of the right to the disposal of his person, his property, and his services. As such, defendant meets the legal indicia of a slave. So I'm going through these elements. The state has deprived defendant of the right to the disposal of his person. Under Texas Penal Code, Section 22.08, it is a state jail felony for a person to promote or assist the commission of suicide by another if said act results in serious bodily injury. By interfering with defendant's right to contract with private actors for the purpose of terminating defendant's life, the state has effectively enslaved defendant to a life of capitalistic drudgery and state-imposed oppression against his consent. What's worse is that defendant doesn't even have the right to terminate his own life. Under Section 573.001 of the Texas Health and Safety Code, defendant may be apprehended, brackets, arrested and detained, brackets, imprisoned, if a peace officer has reason to believe and does believe that there is a substantial risk that defendant may harm himself. The state is effectively using this health and safety code as a backdoor to criminalize assisted or attempted suicide. They're they're criminalizing assisted and attempted suicide. Slavery implies involuntary servitude, a state of bondage, the ownership of mankind as chattel. Defendant did not choose to be born, nor did defendant consent to being subject to the state's unjust laws. One cannot have the right to life without the corollary right to die. Under state law, defendant does not have the right to the disposal of his person. By depriving defendant of the right to die, the state has taken defendant's life for a public purpose without due process of law. And then I put in a footnote that the state is also conspiring to deprive women of bodily autonomy over their own reproductive functions in order to coerce them into producing more slaves to subjugate and oppress. So now we're going to the second element. The state has deprived defendant of the right to the disposal of his property. On June 11, 2023, there was a thunderstorm which caused a tree to fall on defendant's property, damaging defendant's fence. Defendant discovered that the lot from which the tree fell is owned by the city of Dallas. Defendant made numerous 311 requests to have the tree removed from his property. The city of Dallas took no action, leaving its tree on defendant's property without defendant's consent, constituting a trespass on private property as well as a taking of private property without just compensation or due process of law. In addition to being compelled to have the city of Dallas's tree removed from his property, defendant also had to pay hundreds of dollars to get his fence repaired, The city of Dallas denied defendant's claim for reimbursement, citing governmental immunity under Texas law. And I put as the exhibit the letter that I received denying my claim. The only reason that the state has the authority to give the city of Dallas carte blanche to destroy defendant's private property is because defendant is not the true owner of his property. As the sovereign subject, slave, defendant cannot own property in a true sense. Under the social contract theory, the sovereign is the true master, owner of all private property. And then I cited the social contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, which says that the sovereign is the true master of all private property. This is the same reason why this court has the authority to issue a judgment against defendant's property without his consent. And I cite the Texas Government Code granting municipal courts jurisdiction to impose fines without defendant's consent. Under Texas Civil Practices and Remedies Code, municipality is only liable for property damage if the damage arises from the operation or use of a motor-driven vehicle or motor-driven equipment. So under the law, the only way a municipality can be held liable is if the damage was caused by a motor vehicle. But if they were negligent in some other way, they have immunity. So they basically can destroy your property and get away with it. They have impunity to do whatever they want. The government is above the law. We're subjects. They're the masters. We don't actually own private property. So at least that's what I'm arguing. The state has deprived defendant of the right to the disposal of his services. Although defendant has graduated from the ABA accredited law school, defendant does not have the right to use his skills to earn a livelihood without a license from the state. Then I cite the Texas Penal Code section 38.123 stating that it is a third-degree felony to practice law without a license. Although there are plenty of people seeking defendant's legal services, defendant does not have the right to provide them. Instead, defendant is relegated to working, which I blacked out because y'all don't need to know my private business, despite having over $200,000 in student loan debt. Again, this is because the state is a sovereign and defendant is the state's slave. Defendant's lack of ownership of his life grants him absolute immunity for all crimes punishable by fine only. The state's unilateral, excuse me, the state's unilateral social contract is unenforceable against defendant. Slaves are under a legal disability which prevent them from having the capacity to contract, enforce their rights, or consent to anything. Given that the state has sovereign immunity, defendant has no enforceable rights against the state and therefore has no duty to obey. Rights without duties make anarchy. Duties without rights make slavery. A contract to be valid must be binding on both parties, and one in which each party has the right to hold the other to a positive agreement. Unilateral contracts provide no consideration, therefore are not binding. A party must have both standing to sue and capacity to sue. Standing requires there be a real controversy between the parties that will be actually determined by the judicial declaration sought. And in order to have standing, a party must be personally aggrieved and the injury concrete and particularized, actual or imminent, not hypothetical. Without standing, a court lacks subject matter jurisdiction to hear the case. A slave's property belongs exclusively to his master. Given that a slave is part of the res gestae of his owner, the slave's owner is the true culpable party when acting within the scope of the master's authority. Then I cite this case, as this is an old Texas law case from 1894, holding that the owner of a slave ship should be held criminally liable for the acts of his slave. Then I argue that there is only one party to this lawsuit and the state cannot sue itself. Legal coverture prevents slaves from being competent witnesses against their masters. I cite another case comparing slave testimony against their masters to spousal privilege. Given that there is no alleged victim, the state lacks standing. Then my conclusion and prayer. For the foregoing reasons, there is an impediment to the continuation of this case. Defendant requests that the state suspend and abate the state's claim until there has been a judicial declaration of the true owner of defendant's life and defendant's property. Now, I just filed this, so I don't know what their response is going to be, but they're going to have to they're going to have to say who actually owns my life. Either I own my own life, which is going to I'm getting this all on the record because I'm trying to I'm probably going to have to file an appeal, right? If the state says that we own our own lives, that's going to cause a whole bunch of problems. So I don't, because they are depriving us of our right to self-ownership by denying us the right to die, by interfering with women's reproductive rights. I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to dodge, and they're not going to answer it. They know that what they're doing is slavery based on that definition. So they're basically backed into a corner. They can't admit that we're slaves, so they're going. Okay, I will update y'all when I get a response from the state. I don't think they're going to answer it, but we'll see. And the reason I'm doing this now, I'm not going to file this as a civil lawsuit to fight for the right to die because they would probably just have me declared a vexatious litigant or something. But for me to do this in a criminal case as a defense, they're the one who are initiating this lawsuit. So, yeah, I can't be held a vexatious litigant. This is my defense. I'm entitled to maintain a zealous defense. So it is what it is. We're going to see what they say. And if y'all want an update on that, I should be receiving a response soon. I don't know if I should be sharing all my personal information. The reason I'm doing this live stream right now is because somebody said I wasn't going to do it. I am going to do it. I have done it. I don't know how far it's going to go, but at the end of the day, I am making an effort. At the end of the day, I am an activist. I don't just sit here and run my mouth on YouTube. So I don't know that I'll do another video when they respond, but I may just post something on my community wall telling you how the court ruled on this. But anyway, I could get this ticket dismissed easily, but I'm trying to make a point. Yeah, I don't think I could. I think they want to make a deal with me, and because they know they owe me for that tree that fell on my property. But no, no, you initiated this lawsuit, so now I'm going to use. Now I have standing to come after you. So y'all have a good day. I I have another live stream that I'm going to be doing soon, but I don't believe that we own our lives. I think that we're slaves based on case law. We are slaves. So it is what it is. Y'all have a good day.